Hello and welcome to the Farming Today podcast with me, Charlotte Smith. In this episode, officially drought continues in some areas, but torrential rain has brought fresh challenges for farmers.
This is my 41st year of farming, and this is the hardest year I've ever experienced because of the weather conditions. I've never seen a year like it.
And we'll talk rural bus services, or the lack of them. Let's start, though, with the organised crime gang jailed after targeting farm machinery worth millions of pounds. 7 men were jailed for a total of 25 years after pleading guilty to conspiracy to steal at Shrewsbury Crown Court earlier this week. Detective Sergeant Ben Doherty from West Mercia Police told me what had been stolen.
Anything from tractors, trailers, quads, hedge cutting machines, mini diggers and buckets, 4x4 vehicles used to continue on their offending. Anything really that was, shall we say, traditionally not nailed down.
And obviously this sort of agricultural equipment is quite expensive, so we're talking quite a lot of value.
Our estimation is between £5 and £10 million worth of equipment. It could have even been more. There's sometimes a little bit of lack of trust in the farming community about what the police can do, so we did get some under-reporting of offences, which, you know, I can't blame them for at all, and not always had the service that they'd hoped they'd had. We found it quite difficult to, shall we say, nail down the value of some of the items, because trying to contact these victims of crime after they've reported it was a challenge in itself, because they're very busy people. They're out working on their farms, they're out on their land. You know, alone some of the larger tractors that were stolen, we're talking between £140,000 to £260,000 each. And we know on one night there was 3 stolen, so we were up to £500,000 on one offence.
Given, as you say, the difficulties, all this happened at night, no witnesses, difficult to see on CCTV, how did officers identify this gang?
Back in 2022, we saw a spike in rural offending. I was seeing every morning a number of rural properties, mainly barns and outbuildings, being broken into and items stolen. And it was very much concentrated to the southeast district of Shropshire, Much Wenlock, Church Stretton, down as far as Ludlow and Craven Arms. These were all in striking distance of a certain area just outside of Shrewsbury, between Shrewsbury and Bridgnorth, where a number of known people involved in this type of crime were living. We managed to put through inquiries, all sorts of inquiries really, but it was painstaking. It's like a puzzle, but a really difficult puzzle when it's rural crime. Every crime's a puzzle. Invariably you find the pieces around the outside that demonstrate to you what the picture on the inside is going to look like. But on rural crime, it's even more difficult to find those outside edges to show you what the picture in the middle looked like. But we managed to build it together through CCTV, ANPR, telecoms inquiries, witness statements, recovery of property, forensic analysis of recovery of property, and it led us to a number of key people, members of an organised crime group. And once we got the in there, it allowed us to then build a much bigger picture.
There is a reputation, as you alluded to, that the thefts of machinery and vehicles from farms is something the police can't do much about. Do you think this goes some way, at least, to disproving that?
Is it something we can't do much about? I'd say no, that we can do something about it. It's proven that we can do something about it. But unfortunately, you know, under the pressures that, all the police forces across the UK are under at the moment, we have a number of priorities. We seem to have so many priorities that nothing becomes a priority, unfortunately. But the spike of offending that I saw, and obviously these victims of crime are the people putting food on our table, I could not let that pass, and I took it quite personally, and so did the members of my team. And I think, you know, sometimes it just takes that little bit of, no, I'm not going to let this go. This is something we can do something about. And that's where we went with it, really.
DS Ben Doherty from West Mercia Police, and we'll be looking in depth at rural crime in a few weeks' time here on Farming Today. This week, though, our focus is on services for people living in rural communities and how easy or otherwise it is to access them. Today, buses. Last month, we reported on the Commons Transport Committee's inquiry into bus services outside London. The committee's chair, Labour MP Ruth Cadbury, didn't hold back.
We do not have at this point in time any expectation in England outside London that a bus will come along sooner or later and get you to the nearest town. And I don't think that's unreasonable in a country like the UK in the 21st century.
The question of how to solve the problem of poor bus services for villages and rural towns has proved difficult. While the arguments continue, people are left staring at less than ideal bus timetables and unexpectedly empty bus stops. Sarah Falkingham reports from the East Riding of Yorkshire.
Hornsey is a lovely seaside town on the East Yorkshire coast with a population of about 9,000 people. There's no train station, so the bus here is really important, and it's about an hour from here to Beverley, Bridlington and the city of Hull, where most of the job opportunities are. So I'm coming down to the Market Street to talk to people on the early morning bus heading out of town.
This week I've used the bus pretty much every day this week. I'm unemployed at the minute, so it's going for interviews and that, so that's why. And they're not that frequent, and it can be a bit of a pain, really.
Does public transport impact your opportunities, do you think, in life, for work, for socialisation?
Definitely. I mean, I spent some time living in Manchester, and they have 2 free bus services, which I think for people on, low income and universal credit is just really important, because cars are expensive to run. Some people can't afford to even learn how to drive. I'm one of those myself. And so these big cities that have access to a lot of public transport, it does make it cheaper, which I think is, incredibly important, because before the £3 single was implemented in this area, a return used to cost £9.10, which I think is disgusting. It's so much money.
There aren't that many evening buses and early morning buses, but for me personally, I do tend to go out during the day, so it doesn't affect me directly. More buses to go to more places at a more frequent time would always be a good thing.
Hornsey Town Councillor Alan Tharrett started a transport forum which asked the 9,000 residents what improvements they wanted.
They did say they need later buses and earlier buses that are more suitable for people to go to work. More frequent buses running around town which will connect with those buses.
I did notice when I looked at the timetable from Hull that if you finished work at 5:30, the only bus back is at 7:10. That's quite a long wait after a working day.
It is, yes. I mean, it's one of the problems. They're just not helpful at all to working people.
Have you had any success with changing things through talking to the bus operator and talking to the local county council?
I think we have. They just put late buses on again so you can get to Beverley and Hull, which is a lot better. People can access theatre, pubs, nightclubs, whatever now, whereas they couldn't before. As far as other things are concerned, not yet.
I've come 7 miles south of Hornsey to the village of Aldborough. It has a primary school and 600 residents, and the 4 daily buses here just go up and down the coastline, not inland. So although Hull is only 12 miles away as the crow flies, it takes 2.5 hours and 2 buses to get there. For older residents like John Banks, who doesn't drive anymore and moved here a few years ago, the lack of buses has curbed their independence.
Well, you're isolated. It's not feeling. You're isolated, really. Can only go to local pubs. Can't go to anything in Hull or anything, like that at night or even in the afternoon because there's no bus to get you back. Because I used to like to go to cinema and that lot, So you either got to come out halfway through pictures to get last bus back to. So, yeah. And it only goes to Hornsey, and there's no bus back from Hornsey to here. Yeah, you're a bit tied in, really. Just watch TV, that's it.
Did transport factor into a decision to move here?
When I moved here, there used to be a bus at dinner time that went straight to Hull. It was a good service, and then slowly but surely they all disappeared. That was it. It's just, I don't know, it's money, politics or whatever. It's just got whiz and whiz.
That report from Sarah Falkingham. The Environment Agency announced this week that, despite the torrential showers pelting many of us, drought conditions are likely to continue into the autumn. It said that 5 areas of England remain in drought. August rainfall was just 42% of its long-term average, although it seems September is doing its best to make up for that. Well, for many farmers, it is too late to save a difficult year, with many already feeding their livestock with food they should have been saving for the winter. I spoke to 2 dairy farmers, one in the traditional wet west, the other in the dry east.
I'm Rebecca Mayhew from Old Hall Farm in Norfolk. We're 500 acres, mixed farm, predominantly with dairy, sheep, and we have a farm shop and a restaurant. It has felt relentless at times. Because we're in the east of England, it's windy most of the time. So we get quite a lot of dust storms. It feels like we're being scoured with hot, dry winds all the time. And it has just been relentless and exhausting.
And what impact has it had on the business?
So we've been in drought almost constantly for the last 3 or 4 years. I think we've had a very short period where we've been out of drought conditions. So we've been trying to change how we farm, put lots of mitigation procedures in place. So different plant species that we're growing for the cattle to eat. We're trying to bring some technology in, a roller which shatters the subsoil. We're just trying to improve conditions so that when we do get rain, we don't lose it. We've introduced much more diversity into our pastures, and we've started grazing differently. So we're holistic planned grazing, so mob grazing. It has definitely made a huge difference this year.
For many of us, it's really been quite wet over the past few days. Have you shared in that?
We have. We've had about, the dizzying heights of 14 mil over the last couple of days. So not a huge amount.
Does it make a difference?
It does, definitely. We only ever get about 600 mil here, so 14 is a fairly high percentage for us, I suppose. It definitely makes a difference. Things have started to green up already because it's still quite warm, and you can just see that there's a little bit more lusciousness in the pasture. So it has, and it's settled the dust, if nothing else.
It's Richard Cornock, and I'm a dairy farmer in South Gloucestershire, and I've been feeding silage to the cows since probably mid-August. The grass has come back in places. In other places, it's died completely, and I'm going to have to re-drill that. But then we've had a horrific amount of rain in the last couple of weeks, more than I've ever experienced in 1 week. And, luckily, I think we've got a dry spell coming, but it's made the ground a bit wet, and we had to have an issue with a few bad feet because they've been paddling through mud. It's been very difficult, Charlotte.
Although some people listening to this will say he doesn't want too much dry, he doesn't like it now it's wet. Weather's never right for a farmer.
Do you know what? That's very true, but I've never experienced the extremes of this year. This is my 41st year of farming, and this is the hardest year I've ever experienced because of the weather conditions. I've never seen a year like it.
And where does it leave you if you're already feeding silage by the time we get to November, December?
Oh, that's a very good question. I have to say I'm very fortunate in the fact that we were worried about this right back in July. So I started sourcing silage in July because I could see where this was going if it got worse. And I worked on the principle of it's better to have too much silage and make a mistake than not have enough and be looking for it in November. And I think, if fingers crossed, I think I might just have covered myself. But I fear for other farmers who haven't, because there is not the grass and forage around now. But the other fear is, can people afford it? And that's a big crunch question, because to find the money to buy that forage is a big hit for a lot of farms.
Farmers Richard Cornock and Rebecca Mayhew there. Do have your say on anything you've heard in today's programme. You can tweet us, we're at BBC Farming Today on X, or drop us an email, farming.today@bbc.co.uk. That's it from us. I'm Charlotte Smith. The producer is Sarah Swadling, and Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.